last week, they were completely rammed. They were filled up to the gunnels, they were queuing down the street. They said, you should have been here last week. I swear, you should have been here last week. Oh yeah, you should have been here last week.
Hello and welcome to another edition of You Should Have Been Here Last Week, where myself, Steve Gribbin and fellow comedian Paul Ricketts interview the movers and shakers, owners, club owners, promoters, bookers, you name it, the money makers, the shakers, the quakers, the people over the other side of the fence of the comedy industry. And this week's guest is one of the longest running members of that, and who runs some very great ad hoc gigs in the northwest of England. So we present to you the wonderful Mr. Rob Riley.
Hello, Rob. Today we have Rob Riley, who's in Marrakesh, live from Marrakesh, even though it won't be live by the time you watch this because it'll be recorded. So Rob's in Marrakesh, and he is the proprietor, owner of Off the Rails. Comedy in a Van, is that still a thing?
Comedy in a Van is the umbrella title for all the gigs. Off the Rails is just one gig. That's the longest running one. But a lot of people seem to think they're all called Off the Rails because when I first got the receipts done, they said Off the Rails on them, which everybody signed for. And that's why it's sort of people do think it's Off the Rails. But Off the Rails is just one actual gig.
And how long have they been going?
I think we started 2001. Yeah, 2001 we started. So 22 years, man and boy.
Bloody hell. I mean, I'll ask the first question, because this is when we ask all the promoters is, why did you become a comedy promoter? Because
nobody would book me because I was shit. There was actually a bit that it was a couple of things. There was part of me had always wanted to run a comedy night. I don't know why. But before I'd even got into it, I'd look at little rooms around Oldham where I'm from and think, oh, you could put up on a nice night here. I don't know why. And then I started working. I was working in a sort of quite a posh restaurant place. One night the boss said, we want to do a comedy night. And I was doing open spots at the time and said, yeah, I can sort that out for you. We got Justin Morris and Toby Foster and Mick Farrell. It was Mick who I spoke to, and he said, oh, get Justin and Toby on. At the time, they were in a programme called Phoenix Nights. Younger listeners, ask your mum. And
ask your grandmum.
Well, yeah, it's getting to that stage now, really, isn't it? And I watched him sell 180 tickets in about 12 hours, and I thought, oh, this could be a bit better than £4.50 an hour, plus brandy and pudding bonus. And then also, as I was doing stand-up as well, I thought if I got to do some comparing, that would sort of help me as a performer. And the only way you can really compare is, of course, is get a go at comparing, really, is running your own night. So, yeah, I started my own night at a little pub called The Railway in Greenfield, and started it on a Sunday night, thinking, well, this will be brilliant because people will come on the train and we'll get them from Ashton and they can come from Huddersfield. Not realising until the first night that the train stopped running at 3 o'clock on a Sunday. Hence, Off the Rails comedy night. And it sort of all went from there, really.
Yeah. I mean, can you remember the first gig? Can you remember the first one? How it actually went? How the actual night itself went?
Yeah, it was all right. It was all right. I made a lot of classic mistakes. Me comparing was probably one. I had too many acts on. And that's, right, you see so many people on the first night think, oh, we'll get 10 acts on it. Why? You know, it's pointless. The less acts, the better, I think, really. 2, 3 good acts and a decent compare is all you need. I was really sensitive about how long it would last. And again, that's not really a problem. People would much rather have a really good 90 minutes than a drawn-out, tortuous 2.5 hours. And it wasn't great. It was okay, but I worked in that pub behind the bar at the time. And about a week later, I was on the Quiet Pints after my shift in the corner, and I heard a couple of people discussing it, and they were actually saying how good it was. I mean, it wasn't by any means a disaster, but it wasn't a great night either. And that they did make me realise that people's expectations may not be that high. And as long as you put on the good shows, people will come back.
I mean, talking of that, about people's expectations, what would you describe as could you describe your typical audience? Do you know, in terms of class or, social makeup or whatever? What do you think?
I don't really think we have. You see, for my gigs, I only actually run 4 gigs of my own, and everything else I do is booking for other people. So, what goes down well in a community centre in Essex, where the average age is dead, may be different to what you might book at a university, say. So I don't think it really is a typical audience. In my gigs, the gigs I run, they tend to be getting older, I've noticed. And I think that's possibly because of my marketing. For instance, I'm not on TikTok, etc. I've only just discovered Instagram in the last few months.
I've got your leaflets in large print, are they?
Yeah, and I think that's why. And also, I think another reason is because I'm now knocking on a bit. I tend to think of people as younger, sort of 40, but to people who are 18, 19, that's virtually dead, isn't it? That's not young. I think it's always important, and this isn't just comedy promoting, I think this is any business, is you have to take a step outside and try and look at things objectively from the outside. Getting the younger acts on, and where and how you promote will also make a difference to the age of your audience. Because, as a comedian, the more mixed the audience, the better the show is.
Yeah.
Quite often.
Yeah. That's true, actually. It always amazes me, though, with some of the younger acts when they do say, oh, this isn't my audience, looking out and they see anybody over 40. Some of them do say that, and I just think, well, they're human beings, aren't they?
Yeah.
I don't get intimidated by the fact there's younger people in the audience, not unless they're very violent and they're throwing things. But, you should be able to play to anybody, really.
Oh yeah, I mean, if somebody's new, they've probably written what they know about, so it probably is. Not, and they will only have a limited amount of material as well. If they're doing 20 minutes, they might only have 25, 30 minutes in totality. Whereas somebody who's been going your length of time has got, decades, a wealth of top-notch material to go on. You're not stuck with doing stuff about Thatcher and the miners' strike, are you? You've got everything. You've got people who are sort of our age, then you've got stuff they'll remember, you've got topical stuff. But I think it is important. The better comedians will be able to play any playable room or any playable audience.
Well, one of the things that we've talking to different promoters, and one said that the MC should reflect the audience. What do you reckon to that?
No, I wouldn't say so. Not at all. The MC obviously has to gel with the audience, because the MC provides that bridge, doesn't he, between the audience and the acts. He's like the tourist guide who's introducing them to everything and making sure everything goes smoothly. But I don't know if it's a good MC. I don't think they necessarily have to have a massive amount of. They have to be sensitive towards that audience. But again, that goes for any room. Just because a room's full of young people doesn't necessarily mean you need a young MC. There will be things other than age and class going on there. It's like you said before, if they're all drunk and a bit rowdy, you're going to have to be sensitive to that.
I know. Yeah, this is interesting. Well, I'll change the question because this is a new one. But what do you think about the sort of, this has been the last couple of weeks that said that audiences have, especially since the pandemic, seem to be behaving more badly. Would you say that was true, or?
Yes, I would actually, yeah. Since lockdown, we had some absolute nut jobs after lockdown. We had to throw a couple of people out, which is rare. And I have noticed it since. It's not like an epidemic of lunatics, but we certainly seem to get more than we used to. After lockdown, I think what it probably was just booze related. People who'd not been out for ages, determined to have a good time and oblivious to the needs of the people around them.
Yeah,
But it still seems to be there. It still seems to be there a bit.
Yeah, I heard a story. I'm not going to name the comedy club, but it ends in Ogden Bucket. But there was 4 middle-aged women last week or the week before. I heard, you might have heard the story, and they were being absolute arseholes. They were heckling and chucking things at the acts. So they were told to get out, and they just sat there and went no. So they. They're 50 odd, and the bouncer said, "Well, I'm going to go and get the police." I went, "Get the police. Don't care." Okay. So, but then they had to wait 40 minutes while the police came. And in that 40 minutes, when they realised they weren't being served again, just as the priest arrived, they all got up and left because they wouldn't give them any more alcohol. But that to me was an absolute shocker. Because in the old days, you said, get out. People go, okay. They might have gone, ugh. But just to sit there and go, nope.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously, for women, it's a difficult one to deal with. If there are men, bouncers might manhandle them, but you can't do it to women in their 50s.
No.
It's harder, and the audience can turn on you as well. I mean, if you get stroppy, you can get stroppy with a bloke from the stage if you compare it, and the audience will get behind you. But you've got to be careful how you deal with women, because it can be seen as you being, bullying in a way, or misogynistic, and you can lose the entire audience. But I mean, something like that can cause so much damage for the club. I mean, the Frog's been running that long. I'm sure it won't affect them. But imagine if that was a new night and it was just your 3rd or 4th night. Then the venue might say, "Well, we're not putting this on again. It's not worth the hassle." And obviously, all the rest of your audience wouldn't be happy about it at all. And they've had the night ruined by a few idiots.
I mean, it was just the actual sense of entitlement about it that shocked me. They were sort of going, we're not moving. We've come out for a night. And I think you might be right about, since the pandemic, that it's a lot of bottled up tension and energy, but also people seem to have forgotten they are ruining someone else's night.
We seem to live in a very me world at the moment in the last few years. And I wonder how much of that is to do with social media, and also people's attention spans as well seem to have gone. Entertainment has to be very short and snappy now. And also, there's so much stand-up on the show. When you see live at the Apollo and stuff, the acts are only doing a few minutes. You've not got to sit down and endure a full 20. And I think that might affect people's attitudes as well.
That's interesting. What do you think about there's been a lot of people posting stuff on social media, a lot of acts and comedians, whereby it's all audience interaction. And people have been telling me that audience have been turning up, expecting that to be the whole thing.
I think they've always thought that. The amount of times people come up to you at a gig and say, when they've heckled you, and go, "Yeah, I did what you wanted. Me and you we should start a double act, shouldn't we?"
Yeah. If you've been emceeing, you will get the odd one or two, "Oh, you're the best of the lot." And you're not. Well, certainly in my case, but it's just that they prefer that interaction. And quite often it's very cheap shots and quite often very old put-downs that they're seeing. I can go in Greenfield Tesco's, where I do most of my gigs in Greenfield, and I'll get people come up to me and go, "All right, mates, you're in it. You remember when you called me mum a slag?" Oh, we still laugh about.
It's a good job for that. You can insult people and get paid for it.
Do you know that, talking about when people come up to you and say, "Oh, you were the best," or, I didn't like him so much. I had a brilliant story once at Teesside Poly where there was a woman and she was really drunk. She was going down the line of comedians, Davy John's on, "Oh, you were fantastic." And she got to Ross Noble, who she didn't like, and she just went, "Safe journey home."
He must have been devastated about it and probably gave up his career there and then.
I know. Except whatever happened to him, I know. But it's a brilliant story, the way people's minds work, They
will often tell you who they thought was best, like it was some sort of competition, like it was a talent show or something. And this has always gone on. You can't blame it on things like
social media. No.
I thought he was the best. One in the middle, or the last one. Didn't like the first one though. Didn't like the first one. Do I look like I give a fuck? It's like tapas, isn't it? There should be something there for everyone. You're going to have your favourite. It's like Quality Street. Some people like the green triangle, some people don't. The whole thing is variety. Bill should always have variety on it. You know, he should have different shades and flavours for everyone. And if there was people that you liked more than others, then I would argue that worked. But why people assume it's some sort of competition, I've absolutely no idea.
Well, that's why I think the whole thing about behaviour and comparing comedy to theatre, you can't compare the two. Yeah, because no actor's going to come to the stage door and there's lots of punters there going, "Oh, well, you could have done that soliloquy a little bit better, mate." I
don't know.
Could have been punchier. You know what I mean? It's just lacking a little bit of something. I felt shortchanged. I liked you, didn't like him.
Yeah. I think people do that, but they just say it amongst themselves, don't they?
You see, with theatre, you have the fourth wall, don't you?
Yeah.
With theatre, it's like, but comedy is interactive. Even if you're not even if you're a very scripted comic who doesn't interact with the audience, there is no fourth wall. You are talking directly to those people and looking into their eyes. So automatically people think that we do care about their reaction. Obviously, we want everybody to have a good time, but we're not really that asked about their opinion.
Yeah. Not on an individual basis. We don't care. We don't want them to come up individually and score us.
But people think that you are looking at them. But one of the tricks that we as comedians, you look as though you're looking at them. And one of the worst things for a comedian, I think, is if you inadvertently do catch somebody's eyes and you lock into them, and immediately you look away, and think, "Oh, fuck that." But even it works the other way. If I go and see a show, I mean, I'm going to see a music thing. I think that they're looking at me. Even though I'm a performer, I've been doing it for years, and it's part of the whole thing of live performance, isn't it?
What gives you the most aggravation as a promoter, booker, from acts? I suppose. We'll start with acts, so you can move on to anything else.
From acts, cancellations can be very time consuming because you've got, if it's somebody people have specifically wanted to see, then that's a nightmare because you get punters whinging at you. Even if it isn't, you've got to redo a lot of marketing and stuff, so you're doing work again. Basically, I mean, if somebody cancels with like 4 or 5 months to go, it's not the end of the world. But if somebody cancels once you've got everything on sale and out there and all the images have been done and everything, and it's on Facebook and on Twitter and on the websites and on sale on various ticketing sites, because that can take about 2 hours to redo everything. And once you get 3 or 4 in a week, you've lost a day. Another pet bugbear of mine, and this has happened quite a bit recently, acts who turn up at the last minute wanting stuff technical doing. Like, for instance, with Steve, it's not a problem because I know your guitar act, so I know you will need a DI or some way of plugging in. But somebody who doesn't normally do that turns up with a laptop or something and a hopeful smile, and they always do it about 5 minutes before the show, especially if just when the doors have opened, or we'll sit there. The best one, we'll sit there for half an hour, chat about whatever gossip's going on at the time. Wait for you to open the doors, wait for you to be dealing with 150 people, getting them all in, running like an idiot, and then, can I plug this in, and can you arrange your Red Arrows flag past? I've got these pyrotechnics doing. Why didn't you tell me this if you'd have just told me 2 days ago, then I could have had it all sorted. And if you'd have got here a bit earlier, but at the last minute, no, that's a bit of a nightmare. Opening and middle acts, keep it tight, because you're just making it harder for each act that goes on the longer you do.
Yeah.
And also when you've got double ups to consider and that as well, you don't want to be late for the next gig.
Yeah, I mean, the one I just did for you 2 weekends ago, Steve Shenyaski was comparing the beer keller, and I said, "Listen, Steve, as a favour to me, instead of doing 15, can you do 10?" And he did. And that's how it should work, because he knows exactly the same position that I'm in, But some people, I won't name any names, but somebody once at Birmingham Glee Club, a very, very famous comedian, was on in the middle, and he didn't want to be on the middle. He thought he should be closing, and I was closing. He did 50 minutes in the middle. And I mean, after I'd finished chewing the chairs, we just had a massive argument, because it's just bad form, isn't it? overrunning like that?
I had a guy who used to do quite a bit of MCing for me, and the open spot, I've been back in touch about progression, and I was saying to the open spot, I went, well, yeah, I wasn't actually at the gig. I said, but, you know, that last one you did wasn't really that great, was it? And he went, yeah, but he said it's a bit tricky after the compare's done 35 minutes in the middle before getting me on. And I went, no, he didn't tell me that.
Jeez. What did you do then? Seek out the compere and then have him shot? It took ages.
In the end, it was one of those, without going into specifics, it sort of sorted itself out anyway in the end.
Sure.
But it's been a long time since we've worked together. The guy at the time who did the open spot now does a bit of MCing for me and does a really good job. So the balance of the universe has restored itself.
Yeah, he's a grass.
Well, he's pushing up the grass.
Yeah.
Do you know, Donna, talking about going over the shortest bit of compere I've ever seen, this was at Jongleurs Nottingham. She once walked to the microphone, she just went, she was introduced as the compere, she went, good night, and walked off. Right? And left the building. So everyone's going, what the fuck? And then they had to bring the lights up, then the music started again. Oh, God, it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Well,
we've all wanted to do that, haven't we?
So thanks for breaking up your holiday to come and talk to us.
Hey, thanks very much for having me.
All right, see you later.
Great. Cheers, guys. See you again.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye. So that was Rob Riley. You'll notice, by the way, watching that video, that Steve and I could not look any worse. I was using a laptop which has the camera at the bottom of the screen, hence you were looking up my nostrils, which is easy to look up most of the time, no matter where you put the camera. And Steve's head wasn't completely in the frame at any particular point.
Oh, dear.
So we both of us couldn't look worse. We just, I've been saving up that video until we've established an audience so that we could lose it again by them going, my God, look at the state of them two. And the only person who comes out well out of this is Rob Riley, who normally, I wouldn't say is an oil painting, but compared to us in that interview, what a gorgeous looking fella.
He is. He's sex on stick, isn't he? So what's our lexicon word today?
Lexicon word is Millican's Law.
Oh, yes, whereby you're only allowed to gloat over a great gig for 24 hours. And conversely, you're only allowed to wallow in the depths of despair for 24 hours as well. After which the slate is wiped clean like a screensaver. And then you're on to the next gig.
You're only allowed to moan about a gig that you died at. You've got to get it out of your head by midday and you can't moan no more.
It's a very, very common sense law. But it'd be great if people could adhere to that. But human nature is such that people don't, do they?
Well, yes. As we've mentioned before, when you got death in the car, another one of our expressions, the fact that you go, oh, Jesus, you think I could drive till 12 o'clock the next day and still have this person moaning at me and they haven't broken Millican's Law. Sometimes, you need to get over it as quickly as you can. But when I have died and I've had to drive back on my own, I think that sometimes that's just the best thing that can happen, because you can do all that shouting to yourself in the car. Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I do that? And you're slapping your head every couple of miles as you remember another mistake that you made that led to your death.
Yeah, you can't redo that on a train.
No, you can't.
Why didn't I do that?
Yeah.
People move away from you. I mean, conversely, I've had the opposite because I always travel by train, as you know, and I've had a euphoric gig. And by the time the fuck up of travelling home has happened, I've missed a train, missed a connection. I'm really late. There's a bunch of twats on the train. All the joy of the gig has completely evaporated to be replaced by anger and frustration at having to get home. That's one of the things about travelling by public transport, I suppose. But I mean, I think that's based on Millican's Law is a good rule of thumb, really, to try and for a comic to not to dwell on stuff. But then we wouldn't be comedians if that wasn't inbuilt into our soul anyway, was it?
You do have to dwell on stuff. I mean, it's just you just have to take it positively. You've got to think, oh, how can I improve that material? How can I get better so it doesn't happen again? I mean, that's why you're being self-critical and reflective, so you can improve what you do. It's like the story I told you. I went to this gig at a cricket ground in Worcestershire, and they stared at me for 20 minutes. And then the bloke came up to me at the end and just said, well, one of the reasons we've moved here was to get away from people like you.
That is, oh my God. Yeah, but at least he was honest.
No, he's thank you for coming. So he started off with thank you for coming, and I've got no idea what you were talking about, but thank you for coming. And then moved on to some polite racism.
Oh God.
One of the other things I think the falsehoods about entertainment full stop is that after the gig, you're so buzzed up on adrenaline and the disappointment after coming off stage and you're just flying and you just go, that's why you got to have orgies and to take lots of drugs, because that's how I can cope with the come down after being on stage. Whereas I think with comics, you just get in a car, drive home. I mean, it's.
I mean, I do know. I think that a lot of the time, if you get back after a gig, you don't go straight to bed, though, do you?
No,
you stay up and watch it because there's a low level of adrenaline running through you, and you have to either have a cup of tea or.
For me, especially if I was driving back any long distance, the idea that I go straight to bed, I end up having dreams that I'm still driving. So. I definitely have to. You have to unwind a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You have to unwind after a gig, don't you, sir?
So yes, so that is Millican's Law discussed quite quickly, and for those of you, once again, we've reached the end of the podcast, and that's normal. We'll say if you enjoyed it, check out the other Podemy podcasts that are available. Well, if you watch this on YouTube, like, subscribe. If you've got any comments, make some comments to us there. If you've got any comments on the podcast, you can even send us emails. If you want to buy us a coffee in the YouTube thing, please do so. It's in the description. Is there anything else I have to say?
Just get everybody to watch it several million times.
Yeah,
on different devices, on everything.
Yeah,
like that.
That's it.
Also, employ an army of bots to. Oh shit!
No, that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Oh.
As they look at how many people have watched this video in the corner or in the podcast and go, wait a minute, they're not doing that. Yes, we are. We're doing this because we love you. So we'll see you at the next one, and we'll wave at you. On the podcast, you can't see this wave and exactly how nasty it is. It's just a normal wave. No!
They said you should